The marker squeaks against the whiteboard. Kaliyah Monroe's shoulders lock. Her fingers curl into her palms beneath the desk, nails pressing crescents into skin. Around her, 23 fourth graders shift in their seats, pencils frozen mid-scratch, eyes tracking the woman in the cream suit who just entered their classroom without knocking. Principal Celeste Haraway doesn't walk, she glides, heels clicking soft against linoleum, clipboard tucked under one arm, smile painted on like the fresh coat of ivory covering Crestview Preparatory's hallways. The smile doesn't reach her eyes. It never does during observation days. Miss Lowe's voice falters mid-sentence. She's explaining fractions, simple denominators, visual models on the board, but the words dissolve when Celeste's shadow falls across the front row. "Don't let me interrupt," Celeste says, though everyone knows that's exactly what she's doing. She leans against the windowsill, crossing her ankles. Sunlight catches the platinum watch on her wrist. $3,000, maybe more. The kind of watch that costs more than some parents here make in a month. Kaliyah keeps her head down. She learned this trick weeks ago. If you don't make eye contact, sometimes authority forgets you exist. Her grandmother taught her that. "Baby, some folks look at you like they're shopping, not seeing. Make yourself small until it's safe to be big." Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Miss Lowe continues, her voice steadier now but still threaded with tension. She calls on Marcus to demonstrate adding fractions. He stumbles through it, erasing twice, but Miss Lowe guides him gently. "Good thinking. What comes next?" Celeste's pen moves across her clipboard. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound fills the room like static. Then she stops writing. Her gaze sweeps the classroom past the eager hands waving near the front, past the boys whispering near the pencil sharpener, past the girl with perfect braids who always knows the answer. Her eyes land on Kaliyah. Kaliyah feels it before she sees it. That weight, that spotlight. Her spine straightens instinctively, an old reflex from her grandmother's coaching. Posture tells people you belong, even when they don't want you to. "Let's make this interesting," Celeste announces, pushing off the windowsill. She walks to the whiteboard, erases Miss Lowe's carefully drawn fraction models with 3 swift strokes. The chalk dust hangs in the air like fog. Miss Lowe opens her mouth, closes it. Her hand hovers near her desk, fingers twitching toward her phone. Her lesson plan. Something, but she doesn't move. Celeste uncaps a dry erase marker. Blue ink. She writes fast, numbers and symbols bleeding across the board in sharp, angular script. Multi-step equations. Variables. Concepts that won't appear in this classroom for another 3 years. The room goes silent. Even the clock seems to stop ticking. Celeste turns, marker still in hand, and points directly at Kaliyah. Not a question, a selection. "Kaliyah," she says, voice light, almost musical. "How about you try something a little more advanced?" 23 heads swivel. Kaliyah's desk suddenly feels like a stage under stadium lights. Her shirt collar, slightly frayed at the edge where the stitching came loose last week, suddenly feels tight. She swallows, throat dry. This isn't enrichment. Kaliyah knows math. Her grandmother quizzes her every evening at the kitchen table, breaking down problems into patterns, into logic, into truth. "Numbers don't lie," her grandmother always says. "People do." But this isn't about math. Celeste's smile widens. She tilts her head, waiting. The clipboard dangles from her fingers like a judge's gavel. "Come on up," Celeste says, gesturing to the board. "Let's see what you can do." Kaliyah's chair scrapes against the floor. Her legs move automatically, carrying her forward even though every instinct screams to stay seated. She reaches the front of the room. The marker appears in her hand. She doesn't remember Celeste giving it to her. The problem stares back. Fractions mixed with exponents. Order of operations she recognizes but has never applied like this. Her mind starts working, sorting through steps, searching for entry points. But her hand won't move. Not because she can't solve it, because she understands what's happening. This moment isn't about correct answers. It's about something else entirely. something that lives in the pause before Celeste spoke, in the way her eyes skipped over every other student, in the way Miss Lowe's face went pale. Behind her, someone giggles, a nervous sound, quickly smothered. Kaliyah's fingers tighten around the marker. The numbers blur. Celeste leans back against Miss Lowe's desk, arms crossed, waiting. The fluorescent lights hum overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a locker slams. The classroom air feels thick, heavy, pressing down on Kaliyah's shoulders like hands. 5 seconds pass. 10. 15. Then Celeste laughs soft, dismissive, wrapped in false warmth. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," she says, plucking the marker from Kaliyah's frozen fingers. "That's okay, sweetheart. Back to your seat." The room exhales. Kaliyah walks back. Each step feels like miles. She slides into her chair, hands folded on the desk, eyes fixed on the wood grain. Someone's carved initials into the corner. J, R, plus M, L. The letters are deep, permanent. Miss Lowe clears her throat, starts talking about denominators again, but her voice sounds far away, muffled, like Kaliyah's underwater, and everyone else is on the surface, breathing air she can't reach. Celeste makes 3 more notes on her clipboard before she leaves. The door clicks shut behind her. Nobody mentions what just happened. Class continued like normal, but when Miss Lowe asks who wants to try the next problem, Kaliyah's hand, the one that always shot up first, that always knew the answer, stays flat on her desk. And for the first time in 9 years, she decides that being invisible might be safer than being seen. What would you do if someone tested you just to watch you fail? Drop your answer below. The problem still haunts the whiteboard 3 hours later. Kaliyah sits in the cafeteria, tray untouched, staring at the gray chicken nuggets and limp green beans that cost her grandmother $8 from the lunch account. Around her, voices rise and fall, laughter, arguments about basketball, someone trading fruit snacks for chips. Normal sounds, safe sounds. But her mind keeps replaying the marker in her hand, the weight of 23 stairs, the softness in Celeste's voice that felt like knives wrapped in silk. Across the table, her friend Zaria leans forward. "You good?" Kaliyah nods. The lie sits bitter on her tongue. "That was messed up," Zaria whispers, glancing around to make sure no teachers are listening. "My cousin's in 6th grade. He says that kind of math isn't even on their tests yet." Kaliyah picks up a nugget, puts it down. Her stomach feels twisted, knotted, like the friendship bracelets Zaria makes during recess. "It's fine." "It's not fine." Zaria's voice drops lower. "My mom says Miss Haraway isn't even a real teacher. She just has money." Before Kaliyah can respond, the cafeteria doors swing open. Miss Lowe enters, lunch bag in hand, heading toward the staff table in the corner. Her eyes meet Kaliyah's for half a second. Something passes between them. Recognition, maybe apology, but Miss Lowe looks away first, sliding into a seat beside the PE coach. Kaliyah watches her teacher unwrap a sandwich, laughing at something the coach says. Like nothing happened. Like this morning was just another Tuesday. That night, Kaliyah sits at her grandmother's kitchen table. The apartment smells like frying fish and lemon cleaner. Her grandmother, Mama Rochelle, though everyone calls her Mama Ro, hums while she cooks, spatula in one hand, phone tucked between her ear and shoulder. "No, Joyce, I told you I can work Thursday but not Friday," Mama Ro says into the phone. "My knees can't do back-to-back doubles anymore." She pauses, listening. "I know they're short-staffed. That's not my problem. They want to pay me like I'm 25. They better schedule me like I'm 63. Kaliyah opens her math notebook. The pages are filled with her grandmother's teaching fractions broken down into pizza slices, multiplication tables turned into stories, word problems annotated in 2 different handwritings, learning as conversation. But tonight, the numbers swim. Her pencil hovers over a practice problem, but her hand won't move. She keeps seeing Celeste smile, hearing that soft laugh, feeling the marker slip from her fingers. Mama Ro hangs up, turns off the stove. She brings 2 plates to the table: fish, rice, green beans that actually have flavor, and sits down with a grunt. Her knees crack. She's been on her feet since 5 this morning, cleaning houses for families who live in neighborhoods like the one around Crestview. You didn't finish your homework, Mama Rose says, nodding at the blank notebook page. I will. Mama Rose takes a bite of fish, chews slowly, her eyes sharp despite the cataracts. She refuses to get surgery for study Kaliyah's face. Something happened today? Kaliyah shrugs. Just tired. The lie feels heavier this time. Mama Rose doesn't push, but Kaliyah feels the weight of her grandmother's silence. The same silence that raised her after Kaliyah's mother left when she was 3, chasing something that looked like freedom but turned out to be another kind of trap. The silence that worked, double shifts so Kaliyah could go to a school with good opportunities. They eat without talking. Outside, sirens wail. The upstairs neighbor's TV blares through the ceiling. Mama Rose finishes her plate, stands with another knee crack, starts washing dishes. Baby, she says, back turned, hands submerged in soapy water. You know what I always tell you about numbers? They don't lie, Kaliyah recites automatically. That's right. Mama Rose scrubs a plate in slow circles. But people lie all the time, even when they're smiling, especially when they're smiling. Kaliyah stares at her notebook, at the empty page waiting to be filled. Sometimes the hardest math, Mama Rose continues, isn't the kind you do on paper. It's the kind where you got to calculate who's safe and who's not, who sees you as a person and who sees you as a test they didn't ask for. The words settle into Kaliyah's chest, heavy and true. That night, she dreams about whiteboards that stretch forever, covered in problems she knows how to solve but can't reach. In the dream, Celeste stands in the corner, clipboard in hand, writing and writing and writing, while Kaliyah's voice disappears, swallowed by the squeaking of markers and the laughter of invisible crowds. She wakes up at 3 in the morning, throat dry, hands tangled in her sheets. The apartment is quiet, except for Mama Rose snoring through the thin wall. Kaliyah gets up, pours herself water from the kitchen tap, stands at the window looking out at the city lights. Crestview is somewhere out there, its walls gleaming white even in darkness. Its donors sleeping in beds that cost more than this entire building. She thinks about tomorrow, about walking back into that classroom, about whether her hand will stay down forever, or if some part of her will be brave enough to raise it again. The water tastes metallic. She drinks it anyway. When she climbs back into bed, she doesn't close her eyes. She stares at the ceiling, counting cracks in the plaster, doing math in her head, because numbers are the only things that make sense right now. 7 cracks, 14 if you count the small ones, 28 if you include the corner near the smoke detector. Somewhere between 42 and 56, she falls back asleep, and when morning comes, Kaliyah Monroe makes a decision that will echo through Crestview's polished hallways longer than anyone expects. Have you ever stayed quiet when you knew the answer? Tell us why. Miss Darian Lowe's hands shake as she locks her classroom door. It's 4:47 p.m. The hallways are empty except for the janitorial staff rolling trash cans and the faint echo of basketball practice in the gym. Most teachers left an hour ago, eager to escape before evening traffic. But Darian stayed late, organizing papers she's already organized, straightening desks that don't need straightening, buying time. Her phone sits on her desk, screen dark. She's been staring at it for 10 minutes. Finally, she picks it up, opens her notes app. Her thumbs hover over the keyboard, trembling slightly before she starts typing. Tuesday, October 17th, 10:23 a.m. Classroom observation. Principal Haraway. She stops, deletes it, starts again. Incident report no. That sounds too formal, too accusatory. Delete. What I witnessed today. Her phone buzzes. A text from her husband. Dinner at 6? Picking up tie. She responds with a thumbs up emoji, then returns to the blank note. The cursor blinks, waiting, judging. Darian closes her eyes. She's 29 years old. This is her 4th year teaching. Crestview was supposed to be the dream job, the one her professor called career-making. The one that came with benefits and a salary that let her and Marcus finally buy a house. Small, but theirs. The mortgage is due in 12 days. She opens her eyes, types fast, before she can stop herself. October 17. Principal entered during fraction lesson, interrupted without notice. Wrote 7th grade algebraic problem on board. Singled out student black female. 4th grade to solve in front of class. Student visibly uncomfortable. Problem inappropriate for grade level and lesson context. When student hesitated, principal dismissed her with comment, "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." No educational purpose evident. Felt performative, possibly racial bias. Her heart pounds. She reads it 3 times, finger hovering over the delete button. Then she saves it. The relief lasts exactly 4 seconds before the panic sets in. What is she doing? What happens if someone finds this? If Celeste finds out she's documenting? Private schools don't have the same protections as public ones. At-will employment. They can let her go for any reason, or no reason at all. She thinks about Marcus, about the house, about the student loans still eating 30% of her paycheck. But then she thinks about Kaliyah's face, the way her shoulders had curled inward, the way her hand stayed down for the rest of the day. Darian picks up her phone again, scrolls through her contacts to find Simone Baptiste's number. Simone teaches 3rd grade, 1 floor down. They've had lunch together twice, complained about Celeste's leadership style in carefully vague terms. She types, "Can we talk sometime? In person. Not urgent." 3 dots appear immediately. Then, "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just teacher stuff." "Thursday after school? Coffee place on Meridian?" "Perfect." Darian sets her phone down. Her hands have stopped shaking. She gathers her things laptop, the stack of ungraded spelling tests she'll finish at home, her purse with the broken zipper she keeps meaning to fix. In the parking lot, her car, a 2015 Honda with a dent in the passenger door, sits under a flickering streetlight. She unlocks it, tosses her bag in the passenger seat, and sits in the driver's seat without starting the engine. Through the windshield, she can see Crestview's main building, lights still on in the administrative wing. Celeste's office window glows on the 2nd floor, the shadow of someone moving inside. Darian starts the car, drives home on autopilot, mind elsewhere. Thursday comes. The coffee shop smells like burnt espresso and cinnamon. Darian arrives first, claims a corner table far from the windows. She orders chamomile tea she won't drink and watches the door. Simone walks in exactly on time. She's wearing jeans and a cardigan, hair pulled into a messy bun, looking more relaxed than she ever does at school. She orders something iced, despite the October chill, then slides into the seat across from Darian. "So," Simone says, wrapping her hands around her cup. "What's up?" Darian hesitates. In this moment, she can still walk it back, make small talk, complain about grading, go home and pretend Tuesday never happened. Instead, she says, "Have you noticed anything weird about classroom observations?" Simone's eyebrows rise. "Weird? How? Like, who gets called on? Who gets challenged? How it's different depending on..." She trails off, searching for words that won't sound paranoid, depending on what they look like. Simone finishes quietly. Darian's breath catches. "Yeah." Simone leans back, studying her. "You saw something." Tuesday. During my fraction lesson, Darian keeps her voice low even though the nearest customers are 3 tables away. She describes the incident, the interruption, the advanced problem, the dismissive comment. Simone's jaw tightens. "Which student?" "Kaliyah Monroe. Rochelle's granddaughter." Simone nods slowly. "I had her last year. Bright kid. Really bright. Loves patterns." She pauses. "I had something similar happen." Darian leans forward. "What?" "Last spring. Celeste came in during a reading circle. We were discussing a chapter book, age appropriate, everyone engaged. She pulls aside one of my black students, DeAndre, and asks him to read a passage from a 5th grade text in front of everyone. He struggled. She made this face, like she'd proven something. Simone's fingers drum against her cup. I reported it. To who? HR. Simone laughs. But there's no humor in it. They thanked me for my feedback and told me observations are at administrative discretion. Nothing happened. The words land heavy. Darian thinks about her note, hidden in her phone, suddenly feeling naive. So we just let it happen? I didn't say that. Simone pulls out her own phone, opens her notes app. I started keeping records. Dates, times, which students, what happened. I figured eventually there'd be enough of a pattern that someone would have to listen. How many do you have? 7 incidents. 4 different students, all black or brown, all during observations when donors or board members were visiting. Simone's voice hardens. It's not random. They sit in silence for a moment. The coffee shop speakers play generic acoustic music. Someone's laptop pings with an email notification. There's going to be an accreditation review, Darian says suddenly. Next spring. Every 5 years, external evaluators come in, check policies, interview staff. Simone's eyes sharpen. That's months away. I know. Darian pulls up her own notes. But if we both keep documenting, if we can show a pattern, they'll have to investigate. That's a big if. Simone leans forward. And if Celeste finds out we're collecting evidence, we're both gone. Darian knows she's right. But she thinks about Kaliyah again. About how many other kids have learned to keep their hands down, to make themselves small, to calculate safety before every answer. I'm keeping notes, Darian says, whether you do or not. But if we both have evidence, then it's not just one disgruntled teacher. Simone finishes. She's quiet for a long moment, then nods. Okay, but we're careful. No emails, no paper trails, just observations. They shake hands across the table like they're sealing a contract. Maybe they are. When Darian drives home that night, the weight in her chest feels different. Still heavy, but less lonely. Her husband asks how coffee was. She says fine, normal. And in her phone, saved in a folder labeled grocery lists, where no one would think to look, a new note begins. October 20, second documentation meeting. Confirmed pattern of bias during observations. The cursor blinks. She keeps typing. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a teacher can do isn't what happens in the classroom, it's what happens in the quiet spaces where systems think no one's watching. Would you risk your job to protect a student? Comment below. The conference room smells like lemon polish and old carpet. 6 board members sit around the oval table, coffee cups and iPads arranged like chess pieces. At the head, Celeste stands beside a projection screen, remote control in hand, smile carefully calibrated to convey confidence without arrogance. Enrollment is up 14%, she announces, clicking to the next slide. Graphs bloom in blues and greens, numbers climbing, projections soaring. We've added 32 students this quarter alone. Donor engagement has increased proportionally. Board President Malcolm Hendricks, retired investment banker, 3 kids through Crestview, 1 currently at Yale, nods approvingly. The marketing campaign's paying off. Indeed, Celeste clicks again. Which brings me to our next initiative, the Excellence Acceleration Program. The slide changes. Bold letters, challenging every student to reach their potential. The concept is simple. Celeste continues. During routine observations, I identify students who might benefit from advanced challenges. Quick assessments. Push them beyond their comfort zones. See who rises. Board member Patricia Volkoff, tech executive, childless but heavily invested in educational innovation, leans forward. Standardized or custom challenges. Custom. Tailored to the moment. Celeste's smile widens. It's about authentic assessment, seeing how students perform under pressure in real-time scenarios. Fascinating, Patricia murmurs, making a note on her iPad. Very entrepreneurial. No one asks about protocols, about consistency, about whether every student receives equal opportunities to be challenged. No one asks because no one thinks to ask. Malcolm checks his watch. Financial projections for next quarter? Celeste clicks to a new slide. The conversation shifts to budgets and building maintenance, and whether they should expand the robotics lab. The Excellence Acceleration Program gets filed under approved initiatives without further discussion. 12 minutes. That's how long it takes for a policy that will affect hundreds of students to become official. No documentation required. 3 weeks later, Miss Lowe sits in her classroom after hours. Laptop open, spreadsheet glowing on the screen. She's been tracking data for 19 days now, every observation, every challenge, every student selected. The pattern makes her stomach hurt. She's organized the information into columns: date, grade level, student name, race, challenge given, observer, present, Y, N, outcome. 17 incidents so far. 14 involve Black or Latino students. 12 happened during observations when donors or board members were present. 0 white students were given challenges above their grade level. She stares at the numbers until they blur. This is what Celeste meant by authentic assessment, using children as props, turning education into performance, disguising bias as rigor. Her phone buzzes. Text from Simone. You free Saturday? Need to compare notes. My place. 2 p.m.? See you then. Saturday afternoon, Simone arrives with a folder tucked under her arm and stress written across her face. They sit at Darian's kitchen table. Marcus has taken their daughter to the park, giving them privacy. Simone opens the folder. More spreadsheets. More documentation. 8 additional incidents. Simone says. 3rd grade observations. Same pattern. Black students challenged publicly. White students praised or given private enrichment opportunities. Darian adds Simone's data to her own. 25 total incidents now. The pattern isn't subtle anymore, it's screaming. There's something else, Simone says quietly. I talked to the music teacher, Mr. Chen. He's noticed it too. During assemblies, during special performances, Black kids get critiqued in front of everyone. White kids get notes privately. Is he documenting? No, he's scared. Simone's voice drops. His visa status isn't permanent yet. He can't afford to make waves. Darian understands. Fear is its own kind of policy, more effective than any rule written in a handbook. They work in silence for an hour, cross-referencing dates, highlighting patterns, building a case that might never be heard. The accreditation review is in April, Darian says finally. We submit evidence through an anonymous portal. External evaluators review everything. That's 5 months away. I know. Darian closes her laptop. But it's the only path that doesn't end with us fired. Simone looks exhausted. What if nothing changes? What if they review our evidence and decide it's not enough? Then at least we tried. Darian's voice is steadier than she feels. And we'll have documentation, proof that we saw what was happening and refused to ignore it. After Simone leaves, Darian sits alone in her kitchen. Through the window, she watches her daughter playing in the yard, 4 years old, too young for Crestview, but already growing up in a world where some children get challenged and others get crushed. She thinks about Kaliyah, about DeAndre, about all the kids who learned to stay quiet because visibility meant danger. Her phone buzzes. Email notification. She almost ignores it, but something makes her look. Sender. Crestview Administrative Board. Subject. Spring Accreditation Review Teacher. Survey participation. Her heart stops. She opens the email with shaking hands. Dear Crestview faculty, as part of our routine 5-year accreditation review, external evaluators will conduct confidential interviews with staff members in April 2024. Participation is voluntary, but encouraged. All responses will be anonymized and sent directly to the Accreditation Committee. We appreciate your commitment to excellence and transparency. Please confirm your participation by responding to this email. Best regards, Malcolm Hendricks, Board President. Darian reads it 3 times. Confidential, anonymized, directly to the Accreditation Committee. A door has opened. She forwards the email to Simone with one word: opportunity. Simone responds immediately. We need to be smart about this. I know. I mean, really smart. If we submit evidence and they trace it back, they won't. Anonymous portal. Independent evaluators. 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Finally, okay, let's build an airtight case. That night, Darian lies awake next to Marcus, listening to his breathing, thinking about risk and reward, and the thin line between courage and stupidity. At 2:17 a.m., she gets up, opens her laptop, creates a new document titled Observation Patterns and Equity Concerns, Confidential Submission for Accreditation Review. She starts typing. By dawn, she has 11 pages. Evidence, patterns, data that doesn't need interpretation because the numbers speak for themselves. She saves 3 copies, one on her laptop, one on a flash drive hidden in her jewelry box, one in a cloud account under a fake name. Then she goes to wake her daughter, make breakfast, get ready for another day at Crestview where she'll smile and teach and pretend everything is fine. Because that's what survival looks like sometimes. But survival isn't the same as surrender. And somewhere in a quiet folder on a secure server, evidence is accumulating, patient, methodical, waiting for the moment when silence finally transforms into something louder. Have you ever collected evidence of something wrong, waiting for the right moment to act? Share your story. Kaliyah's math notebook sits unopened on her desk. It's been 6 weeks since the incident. 6 weeks of keeping her head down, her hand flat, her voice swallowed. Around her, the classroom buzzes with Wednesday energy kids finishing multiplication worksheets, trading erasers, whispering about after-school plans. Miss Lowe circulates through the rows, pausing to help students, offering encouragement in her gentle voice that never quite reaches Kaliyah anymore. Every time their eyes meet, Miss Lowe's expression shifts something like guilt, maybe concern, but she doesn't say anything directly. Teachers never do. Kaliyah's worksheet is blank except for her name. The problems aren't hard. 4-digit multiplication. She could finish them in 10 minutes. But her pencil feels heavy, like someone filled it with concrete instead of graphite. 5 more minutes, Miss Lowe announces, then we'll review answers together. Kaliyah stares at the first problem. 3,456 x 8. Her mind automatically calculates 27,648, but her hand doesn't write it down. What's the point? If she finishes too fast, someone might notice. If she answers too many correctly, she might get challenged again. Better to be average, forgettable, safe. Zaria, sitting next to her, glances over. You stuck? Kaliyah shrugs. Just tired. Want me to? Time's up. Miss Lowe interrupts. Let's go over them together. Kaliyah exhales slowly. Relief and disappointment twist together in her chest. That evening, Mama Ro's kitchen smells like cornbread and collard greens. Kaliyah sits at the table, pushing food around her plate, appetite gone somewhere she can't locate. Baby, you barely eating, Mama Ro observes, lowering herself into the chair with her usual knee-crack symphony. You feeling sick? Not hungry. Mama Ro's studying face is back, the one that sees through walls and excuses and carefully constructed lies. How's school? Fine. Your teachers say you've been quiet lately, not participating like you used to. Kaliyah's fork stops mid-push. When did you talk to Miss Lowe? Parent-teacher conferences was last week. You know that. Mama Ro tears off a piece of cornbread, doesn't eat it. She's worried about you. Says you used to love math class. Now you act like the number's gonna bite you. The words land harder than they should. Kaliyah's throat tightens. She stares at her plate grease pooling around the greens, cornbread crumbling at the edges. Did something happen? Mama Ro's voice softens. Baby, talk to me. For a moment, Kaliyah almost does. Almost tells her grandmother about the whiteboard, the impossible problem, the soft laughter that made her feel microscopic. But what would change? Mama Ro would get angry, maybe call the school, maybe make things worse. I'm just tired of math, Kaliyah says finally. It's boring now. The lie tastes like metal. Mama Ro is quiet for a long time. Then she stands, walks to the junk drawer, pulls out an old envelope. She returns to the table and slides it across. "Open it," she says. Kaliyah opens the envelope. Inside are report cards yellowed with age, corners soft from handling. Her mother's report cards from elementary school, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. Every single one has the same teacher comment, written in different handwriting, but saying the same thing. Bright student. Needs to participate more. Seems distracted. "Your mama was smart," Monroe says quietly. "Real smart. Teachers told me she could do anything she set her mind to." She taps one report card, but somewhere around 4th grade, she stopped trying, stopped raising her hand, started making herself small. Kaliyah's fingers trace her mother's name on the card. Why? Because somebody made her feel like being smart was dangerous, like standing out meant standing alone. Monroe's voice cracks slightly, and by the time she realized that was a lie, she'd already convinced herself she wasn't smart no more. Took her years to unlearn that. Kaliyah looks up. Where is she now? Still learning. Monroe takes Kaliyah's hand. "Baby, I can't make you tell me what happened, but I need you to know something. When you make yourself small to make other people comfortable, you don't disappear. You just hurt in places nobody can see." The words settle into Kaliyah's chest, heavy and true. That night, she lies in bed staring at the ceiling cracks. 42, 56, 71 if you count the tiny ones near the window. Her math notebook sits on her nightstand, still unopened. At school the next day, Miss Lowe introduces a new unit, geometry. Basic shapes, angles, perimeters. The kind of math that feels safe because it has visible boundaries. But halfway through the lesson, Miss Lowe does something unexpected. She divides the class into pairs for a project. "You'll design a floor plan for your dream house," she explains. "Calculate room dimensions, total area, perimeter. Be creative. Help each other." Kaliyah gets paired with Marcus, the quiet boy who sits near the pencil sharpener, the one who stuttered through fractions back in October. They spread graph paper across their desks. Marcus immediately starts sketching. "I want a basketball court," he says. "Like a whole indoor court." Kaliyah watches him draw. His lines are messy but enthusiastic. He's not worried about perfection. "That's gonna be huge," she observes. "You'll need to calculate square footage." "How?" Marcus looks up, genuinely asking. And something shifts. Kaliyah picks up a pencil. Length times width. "What dimensions do you want?" They work together for 20 minutes. Marcus draws. Kaliyah calculates. She catches herself explaining concepts, showing him shortcuts, her voice growing stronger with each measurement. When Miss Lowe walks by, she pauses. "Nice work, you two." Kaliyah expects the old panic, the fear of being noticed, of being tested, but it doesn't come. Maybe because this feels different. Collaboration instead of performance. Help instead of spectacle. "Thanks," she says quietly. After school, she sits with Monroe at the kitchen table, opens her math notebook for the first time in 6 weeks. "I need help with something," Kaliyah says. Monroe puts down her crossword puzzle. "What you working on?" "Geometry. Floor plans." Kaliyah shows her the graph paper. "I want to design a house with a library and a math room." Monroe's smile reaches her eyes. "A math room? That's ambitious. Can we calculate the dimensions together?" "Baby, we can calculate anything you want." They work side by side until dinner time, measuring, drawing, erasing, recalculating. Kaliyah's hand cramps from writing. She doesn't care, because numbers still make sense. People still lie. But somewhere in the space between those two truths, Kaliyah Monroe is learning that silence isn't the same as safety, and being seen doesn't always mean being heard. Her hand isn't all the way up yet, but it's no longer pressed flat against the desk. And that small motion, that tiny reclaiming of space, will matter more than she knows when the system finally starts to crack. When did you realize staying silent was hurting more than speaking up? Tell us in the comments. The email arrives at 6:43 a.m. on a Tuesday in March. Darian's coffee is still steaming when her phone pings. She's standing in her kitchen, hair wet from the shower, trying to force down oatmeal before the morning rush. Marcus is upstairs getting their daughter ready. Normal Tuesday, sounds cartoons playing, toothbrush running, sneakers thumping against hardwood. Then she opens the email. Subject: accreditation site. Visit schedule confidential staff interviews. Her hand freezes mid-spoonful. Dear Ms. Lowe, you have been randomly selected for a confidential interview with our external accreditation team on April 12th at 2 p.m. The interview will take place in Conference Room B. Please confirm your availability. All responses will remain anonymous and will not be shared with school administration until after the final accreditation report is submitted. Dr. Patricia Nkomo, Lead Evaluator, Southern Association of Independent Schools. Darian reads it 3 times. Her oatmeal goes cold. Upstairs, her daughter shrieks with laughter about something. The normalcy feels wrong somehow, like she's standing in 2 different worlds simultaneously. She forwards the email to Simone. No message, just the forward. 3 minutes later, her phone buzzes. Simone's reply is 2 words: I'm scheduled to. At school, the hallways buzz with ordinary chaos. Kids slamming lockers, teachers juggling coffee and lesson plans. The morning announcements crackle through speakers: Student of the Week, upcoming field trip, lunch menu changes. Darian teaches her morning classes on autopilot. Fractions, spelling, reading comprehension. Her students sense nothing different, but inside her chest, her heart beats like it's trying to escape. During lunch, she finds Simone in the faculty lounge. They sit in the corner, sandwiches untouched, voices low. April 12th, Simone whispers. That's 3 weeks away. We need to finalize everything. Darian pulls out her phone, opens the encrypted folder where she's been storing documentation. 29 incidents total now. Clear pattern. Multiple witnesses. I have 31, Simone says quietly. Mr. Chen finally gave me his observations. Wouldn't go on record, but he wrote everything down. Dates, details. Darian's hands shake slightly. This is real now. Not theoretical. Not someday. 3 weeks. What if they don't believe us? Simone's voice cracks. What if they think we're just disgruntled employees making accusations? Then we'll have tried. Darian sounds braver than she feels. But the data doesn't lie. 29 incidents. Statistical impossibility that it's random. They sit in silence. Around them, other teachers chat about weekend plans, complain about grading, share classroom horror stories, normal problems, safe problems. Darian and Simone are playing a different game. That afternoon, Celeste appears in Darian's doorway during planning period. No warning, just suddenly there, perfectly dressed in navy blue, smile polished. Miss Lowe, Celeste says pleasantly. Do you have a moment? Darian's stomach drops. Her laptop is open, encrypted folder, visible if anyone looked closely. She closes it casually, stands. Of course. Celeste walks into the classroom, heels clicking. She examines the bulletin board: student work displayed in neat rows, colorful and cheerful. Your students are progressing well. Thank you. The accreditation visit is coming up. Celeste turns, eyes sharp despite the smile. It's important we present a unified message about Crestview's excellence. You understand? The words sound innocent. The meaning underneath is clear. Don't make problems. Of course, Darian repeats. Her voice is steady. She's had years of practice hiding fear. Good. Celeste's smile widens. I knew I could count on you. You're one of our strongest teachers. We'd hate to lose you. The threat hangs in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. After Celeste leaves, Darian sits at her desk for 5 full minutes, staring at nothing. Her hands won't stop trembling. She texts Simone. She knows something. What did she say? Nothing specific. Everything specific. We're too close to stop now. Darian knows Simone is right. They've come too far, collected too much evidence. 3 weeks feels like forever, and no time at all. That night, she can't sleep. She lies next to Marcus, listening to his breathing, thinking about mortgages and student loans, and the thin line between courage and career suicide. At 2:34 a.m., she gets up, opens her laptop, reviews the documentation one more time. 29 incidents, patterns clear as daylight, children treated like props, education weaponized, and at the center, a principal who sees students as data points, not humans. She adds one final note to her submission. These incidents represent systematic bias disguised as educational enrichment. The children affected have shown decreased participation, declining confidence, and academic disengagement following public challenges. This is not isolated. This is institutional. She saves it. 3 copies: laptop, flash drive, cloud. Then she writes an email to Dr. Nkomo, the lead evaluator. Her fingers hover over the keyboard. Dr. Nkomo, I have documentation regarding equity concerns at Crestview Preparatory that I believe warrant your attention during the accreditation review. I am prepared to discuss these concerns in detail during my scheduled interview on April 12th. I have also compiled statistical evidence and witness accounts that demonstrate patterns of discriminatory practices during classroom observations. This information is sensitive and could impact my employment if disclosed prematurely. I trust the confidentiality of this process. Respectfully, Darian Lowe. She reads it 10 times. Her finger hovers over the send button. One click. That's all it takes. One click to start something that can't be stopped. She thinks about Kaliyah, about DeAndre, about all the children who learned to make themselves invisible because visibility meant danger. She thinks about the report cards in Mama Rose's envelope, about how many generations of Black children have been taught that silence equals survival. She thinks about what kind of teacher she wants to be. At 3:17 a.m., she clicks send. The email whooshes into the void. No taking it back now. No pretending she didn't see what she saw. She closes her laptop, climbs back into bed. Marcus shifts in his sleep, throws an arm across her waist. In 3 weeks, everything will change. The only question is how. The next morning, Darian walks into Crestview with her head high. She teaches her classes, smiles at her students, helps Kaliyah with a geometry problem during individual work time. And when Kaliyah solves it correctly, when her face lights up with that particular joy that comes from understanding something difficult, Darian knows she made the right choice. Because some things matter more than safety. Some things matter more than staying quiet. And sometimes the most dangerous thing a teacher can do is exactly what they're supposed to do: protect their students. Even when the system says to look away, 3 weeks suddenly feels like both eternity and tomorrow. Would you send that email? Would you risk everything for what's right? Let us know in the comments. And if this story is keeping you hooked, subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens when the investigation begins. Share your thoughts below and inspire others with your courage. The memo appears in faculty mailboxes on April 4th. Celeste's assistant distributes them during morning break. Crisp white paper, school letterhead, words arranged with surgical precision. Teachers gather in clusters, reading silently, expressions shifting from curiosity to careful neutrality. Darian finds hers wedged between a PTA newsletter and a reminder about standardized testing dates. She reads it standing at her mailbox, coffee growing cold in her other hand. 2. All faculty and staff. From Principal Celeste Haraway. Accreditation review, expectations, and protocol. As we prepare for next week's accreditation site visit, I want to remind all staff of our shared commitment to presenting Crestview's excellence accurately and consistently. External evaluators will be conducting classroom observations and confidential interviews. Please note, all comments should reflect positively on our institutional mission and values. Concerns about specific policies or personnel should be addressed through proper internal channels first. Remember that our accreditation status directly impacts our funding and reputation. We have worked too hard to build Crestview's sterling reputation. to allow misunderstandings or isolated incidents to be misrepresented during this critical review period. Thank you for your professionalism and discretion. The words look professional. The message underneath screams, keep your mouth shut. Simone appears at Darian's elbow, her own memo clutched in white-knuckled fingers. Did you? Yeah. Darian folds the paper, stuffs it in her bag. Around them, other teachers disperse quickly, avoiding eye contact. Nobody wants to be seen discussing the memo too closely. She's scared, Simone whispers. This isn't normal protocol. This is damage control. She doesn't know what we submitted, Darian says, but doubt creeps into her voice. The portal's anonymous, but she knows something's coming. Simone glances toward the administrative wing where Celeste's office glows behind frosted glass. She can feel it. That afternoon, Mr. Chen approaches Darian in the hallway. His face is pale, hands shaking slightly as he grips his folder of sheet music. I can't, he says quietly. I wanted to help, but I can't. My visa status. I know, Darian interrupts gently. It's okay. You gave us your observations. That's enough. Is it? Mr. Chen's voice drops to barely audible. Is anything we do enough when the people in power don't want to hear it? He walks away before Darian can answer. The question haunts her through the weekend. Saturday morning, she wakes up from dreams about whiteboards and clipboards and children disappearing into cracks in polished floors. Sunday, she can't focus during church. Monday drags like walking through wet concrete. Tuesday arrives. April 12th, interview day. Darian teaches her morning classes in a fog. She calls on students, grades, assignments, facilitates group work. Everything feels distant, like she's watching herself from outside her body. At 1:45 p.m., she walks to conference room B. The hallway is empty. Most classes are in session. Her footsteps echo against tile that costs more per square foot than most people's rent. She knocks. A woman's voice calls, "Come in." Dr. Patricia Nkomo sits behind the conference table, early 50s. Natural hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose. She's surrounded by binders, laptops, and stacks of documentation. Another evaluator, younger, white, male, sits beside her with a tablet. "Miss Lowe," Dr. Nkomo says warmly. "Please sit. I'm Dr. Nkomo, and this is my colleague, Mr. Harrison. Thank you for meeting with us." Darian sits. Her hands are sweating. She clasps them in her lap. "This is a confidential conversation," Dr. Nkomo continues. "Nothing you say will be shared with school administration until after our final report is submitted. We're here to understand the reality of educational practices at Crestview. Not the brochure version, the real version." She pauses, eyes sharp but kind. "I received your email." Darian's heart stops, starts again, beats too fast. "I also received similar communications from other staff members, Dr. Nkomo says carefully, which suggests there may be institutional patterns worth examining. So, let me ask you directly, what's happening at Crestview that concerns you? This is it. The moment. No going back." Darian takes a breath, opens her bag, pulls out the flash drive. "I've been documenting incidents for 6 months, she says. Her voice shakes but doesn't break. Patterns of bias during classroom observations. Students of color being publicly challenged with inappropriate material, while white students receive private encouragement. Systematic use of children as performance props when donors visit." She slides the flash drive across the table. 29 documented incidents. Dates, times, witnesses, outcomes, statistical analysis showing the pattern isn't random. It's institutional policy, disguised as educational enrichment. Dr. Nkomo picks up the flash drive. "And the principal is aware of these practices?" "She created them." Darian's hands steady as she speaks. Truth has weight. She calls it the Excellence Acceleration Program. It's approved by the board. But nobody asked how students are selected. Nobody tracks outcomes. Nobody questions why the challenges only happen publicly for certain children. Mr. Harrison types rapidly. Dr. Nkomo's expression remains neutral, but something flickers behind her eyes recognition, maybe anger. Tell me about specific incidents, Dr. Nkomo says. Darian does. She describes Kaliyah and the 7th grade math problem, DeAndre and the advanced reading passage, 5 other children, all with similar stories, public tests, dismissive conclusions, confidence shattered. She talks for 37 minutes. Mr. Harrison's fingers never stop moving across his tablet. When she finishes, the room is silent except for the air conditioning's hum. Miss Lowe, Dr. Nkomo says finally, you understand that bringing this forward could have consequences for you personally. Yes? And you're willing to stand by this documentation? Yes. Darian's voice is firm now. Because those children deserve better. They deserve a school that sees their potential, instead of using them as props. Dr. Nkomo nods slowly. We'll be interviewing other staff members this week, reviewing classroom observation protocols, examining board meeting minutes regarding this Excellence Acceleration program. She pauses. If your documentation is accurate, and I have no reason to doubt it, this is a serious accreditation concern. What happens next? Darian asks. We compile our findings, submit a preliminary report to the accreditation board. If patterns of discriminatory practice are confirmed, Crestview will be placed on probationary status. They'll have 1 year to implement corrective measures or risk losing accreditation entirely. Losing accreditation means losing funding, losing reputation, losing the donors who keep Crestview's walls painted and its brochures glossy. It means Celeste loses. Thank you for your courage, Dr. Nkomo says. Most teachers wouldn't risk this. Most teachers shouldn't have to, Darian replies. She walks out of conference room B at 2:43 p.m. The hallway is still empty. She makes it to her classroom, closes the door, and sits at her desk. Her hands are shaking again, but different now. Not fear, relief. The weight she's been carrying for 6 months has shifted. Not gone, but shared. Her phone buzzes. Text from Simone. How did it go? I told them everything. Me too. Interviews in 20 minutes. Good luck. We did it. Darian stares at those 3 words. We did it. Past tense. Like it's over. But she knows better. This is just beginning. That evening, she sits at dinner with Marcus and their daughter. Normal sounds, forks, scraping plates, juice being poured, a 4-year-old's rambling story about playground adventures. Marcus studies her face. You okay? You've been quiet. Long day, Darian says. Not a lie. Not the truth. Work stuff? Yeah. She manages a smile. But good work stuff. Important work stuff. He doesn't push. That's one of the things she loves about him. He knows when to wait. Later, after their daughter is asleep, Darian stands at the bedroom window looking out at their small backyard. The mortgage that scared her 6 months ago doesn't feel as heavy anymore. Maybe because she's learned that some things cost more than money. Staying silent has a price too. And she's done paying it. Have you ever spoken up when everyone else stayed quiet? Tell us what happened. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Next chapter reveals what happens when power realizes it's cornered. Drop a comment and inspire others with your story. Celeste's office smells like expensive candles and desperation. She sits behind her desk, imported oak, custom made, the kind that costs more than most teachers make in 3 months, staring at her computer screen. The email has been open for 17 minutes. She's read it 11 times. From Dr. Patricia Nkomo. Subject: Preliminary findings, urgent review required. Principal Haraway, our accreditation team has identified significant concerns regarding equity in classroom observation practices. We need to schedule an immediate meeting to discuss these findings before our preliminary report is submitted. Please confirm your availability for Thursday, April 14th at 9 a.m. This meeting is mandatory. The words blur. Celeste closes her eyes, temples throbbing. Thursday is 2 days away. She opens her bottom desk drawer, pulls out a folder marked Excellence Acceleration Program, board approval documents, implementation timeline, success metrics that measure everything except what actually matters. Her phone buzzes. Text from Malcolm Hendricks, board president. Got a call from the accreditation team. What's going on? Celeste's fingers hover over the keyboard. She types 3 different responses, deletes them all, finally settles on meeting scheduled for Thursday. We'll brief you after. His reply comes immediately. This better not impact our funding. Everything is always about funding, about donors, about reputation, never about the children crushed under the weight of policies designed to look good in brochures. Celeste stands, paces to the window. Below, students flood the playground for afternoon recess. She watches them without really seeing, just shapes moving, data points, problems to optimize. Except they're not data points. They're children. And somewhere in the 6 years since she became principal, she forgot the difference. Thursday morning arrives wrapped in gray clouds and threatened rain. Celeste dresses carefully, charcoal suit, pearl earrings, armor disguised as professionalism. She arrives at school at 6:30 a.m., 2 hours before the meeting. Conference room A is empty when she enters. She sits at the head of the table, her usual position, and waits. Dr. Nkomo and Mr. Harrison arrive at 8:52 a.m. They carry thick binders and wear expressions that reveal nothing. "Thank you for meeting with us," Dr. Nkomo says, settling into a chair. Not the deferential tone Celeste is used to. This is different. This is authority meeting authority. "Of course," Celeste replies smoothly. "I'm committed to addressing any concerns." Dr. Nkomo opens the first binder. "We've completed 19 confidential staff interviews, reviewed classroom observation protocols, examined board meeting minutes regarding your Excellence Acceleration Program, and analyzed documentation provided by multiple staff members." Celeste's stomach drops, but her face stays neutral. Years of board meetings have taught her how to hide panic. "We've identified a clear pattern," Dr. Nkomo continues. "Disproportionate application of advanced challenges to students of color, public testing during donor visits, lack of follow-up or support after students struggle, systematic use of educational enrichment as performance rather than pedagogy." She slides a document across the table. Charts, graphs, numbers that don't lie even when people do. Over a 6-month period, 29 documented incidents show that 86% of public challenges above grade level were given to Black or Latino students. 0 white students received similar treatment. When board members or donors were present, this disparity increased to 92%. The numbers stare back at Celeste like accusations. Furthermore, Mr. Harrison adds, "We found no tracking of outcomes, no assessment of whether these challenges benefited students, no intervention when children showed signs of academic disengagement following incidents." Dr. Nkomo's voice hardens. "This isn't enrichment, Principal Haraway. This is institutional bias, dressed up as educational rigor." The room tilts. Celeste grips the edge of the table. The program was approved by the board. It was designed to push students beyond their comfort zones. Selectively, Dr. Nkomo interrupts. "Based on race, during performances for wealthy donors. That's not education, that's exploitation." The word hangs in the air. Exploitation. Such an ugly word for something Celeste convinced herself was innovation. "What happens now?" Celeste asks. Her voice sounds far away. "Crestview will be placed on probationary accreditation status," Dr. Nkomo says. "You have 1 year to implement comprehensive equity reforms, mandatory bias training for all staff, revised observation protocols with transparent selection criteria, regular external audits of disciplinary and enrichment practices." She pauses. "And the Excellence Acceleration Program must be immediately suspended pending complete redesign with equity oversight." Each requirement lands like a hammer. Probationary status means donors will ask questions, board members will panic, parents will demand explanations. If these requirements aren't met within 12 months, Dr. Nkomo continues, Crestview will lose accreditation. which means losing access to federal funding, state tax benefits, and your status as a recognized independent school. Celeste knows what that means. Financial collapse, institutional death. I understand, she says. Her voice is mechanical. I hope you do. Dr. Nkomo stands. Because this isn't about your reputation or Crestview's funding. It's about children who learned to stop raising their hands because adults turned education into a game where they were designed to lose. The meeting ends. Dr. Nkomo and Mr. Harrison leave. Celeste sits alone in conference room A, staring at the documents they left behind. Evidence, patterns, children she never really saw. Her phone buzzes. What's the damage? She doesn't respond. Instead, she walks through empty hallways to her office, sits at her expensive desk, opens her laptop. She types an email to the board, explains the probationary status, the requirements, the year-long reform period. Then she opens a new email. This one is addressed to the superintendent of schools, copied to the board president. Effective June 30th, I will be resigning as principal of Crestview Preparatory to pursue other opportunities. This decision comes after careful consideration of what's best for the institution and my own professional growth. She reads it once, doesn't let herself read it twice. Clicks send at 11:47 a.m. By lunch, the news has spread through faculty channels. Teachers whisper in hallways. Students sense something shifting without understanding what. In her fourth grade classroom, Kaliyah Monroe solves a geometry problem at the board. Her hand had gone up when Miss Lowe asked for volunteers. Strong, confident. She doesn't know that the principal who tested her 6 months ago just resigned. She doesn't know about the investigation, the documentation, the teachers who fought for her in rooms she never entered. All she knows is that today, she raised her hand, and the room waited for her answer. Justice doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it happens in quiet rooms with binders and evidence. Subscribe and turn on notifications to see the final chapter when the system changes and Kaliyah's story comes full circle. Comment below. Have you ever witnessed justice served quietly? Share your experience. The memo arrives on May 2nd in every Crestview family's email inbox. Parents read it over morning coffee, between meetings, during carpool lines. The language is careful, corporate, designed to inform without alarming. But underneath the polished words, everyone understands. Something fundamental has shifted. Dear Crestview families, we write to inform you of an important leadership transition. Principal Celeste Haraway has resigned, effective June 30th, to pursue other professional opportunities. We are grateful for her service and wish her well in her future endeavors. Additionally, our recent accreditation review has resulted in probationary status as we work to enhance our equity and inclusion practices. This status does not affect our current operations or academic standards. Rather, it represents our commitment to continuous improvement and ensuring every student receives excellent education in an environment that values their unique potential. We will be implementing comprehensive reforms over the coming year, including revised observation protocols, mandatory professional development, and external equity auditing. An interim principal will be announced shortly. Thank you for your continued trust in Crestview's mission. The words say everything and nothing. Parents who want to read success see continuous improvement. Parents who know how to decode institutional language see discrimination investigation. In the faculty lounge, teachers gather during planning periods. Conversations happen in careful tones, relief mixed with caution, hope tempered by skepticism. Darian sits with Simone in their usual corner. They don't say much. Sometimes victory doesn't feel like celebration. Sometimes it just feels like exhaustion after carrying something heavy for too long. Do you think it'll actually change? Simone asks quietly. Or will they just find more polished ways to do the same thing? Darian considers the question. I don't know, but at least there's documentation now, evidence, external oversight. For 1 year. 1 year is better than 0 years. Darian sips her coffee. And maybe, maybe some kids won't have to learn to make themselves small. Across town, in a modest apartment that smells like lemon cleaner and morning bacon, Kaliyah sits at the kitchen table finishing her homework. Math problems, nothing too advanced, just age-appropriate fractions and basic geometry. She completes them in 12 minutes. Mama Ro watches from the stove, spatula in hand. "You flying through that work today. It's easy," Kaliyah says. Not bragging, just stating fact. "You've been raising your hand more at school?" Kaliyah nods. Miss Lowe says I should consider the math enrichment program next year. The real one, where they teach advanced stuff after school. You want to do that? Kaliyah thinks about it. 6 months ago, the answer would have been no. Advanced anything felt dangerous. Visibility felt like a trap. But something's different now. She can't name it exactly. The air at school feels lighter somehow, like pressure that was always there suddenly released. "Yeah," she says finally. "I think I do." Mama Rose smiles, the kind that reaches her eyes. "Then we'll make it work. Always do." At Crestview, changes happen slowly at first, then faster. A new interim principal arrives, Dr. Marcus Chen, no relation to the music teacher, a veteran educator with 20 years' experience in equity-focused administration. His first act is meeting with every teacher individually. Not observations, conversations. When Darian sits across from him in conference room B, the same room where she gave her testimony, Dr. Chen asks simple questions. What do students need that they're not getting? What makes you afraid to speak up? How can we make this school safe for every child? She answers honestly. For the first time in 4 years, she doesn't calculate risk before speaking. By September, new protocols are in place. Classroom observations follow structured rubrics. Advanced challenges are offered through formal enrichment programs with transparent selection criteria. Every incident involving discipline or academic testing is documented and reviewed by an equity committee that includes teachers, parents, and an external consultant. It's not perfect. Systems don't transform overnight. But it's different. The data tells the story over the following year. Student engagement increases, particularly among Black and Latino students. Participation rates in advanced programs become more representative of the actual student body. Teacher retention improves. Numbers don't lie. And these numbers show that accountability, real accountability, not performative statements, creates change. But Kaliyah never knows the full story. She doesn't know about the flash drives and encrypted folders, about the teachers who documented patterns while carrying fear in their chests, about the investigation that happened in rooms she never entered. What she knows is simpler and more important. One day, her hand went down, and eventually, it came back up. That's the whole story, really. The rest is just how it happened. 2 years later, Kaliyah sits in 6th grade advanced math. The classroom is different from her 4th grade room. Higher ceiling, better equipment, students who love numbers the way she does. The teacher, Miss Washington, writes a problem on the board. Complex, multi-step, 7th grade level. "Who wants to try this?" she asks. Kaliyah's hand shoots up. Not alone, 5 other hands join hers. But Miss Washington doesn't create spectacle. She doesn't test anyone publicly to prove a point. Instead, she says, "Kaliyah, walk us through your thinking, and everyone else, listen carefully, then we'll explore different approaches together." Kaliyah walks to the board, picks up the marker. Her hand doesn't shake. She solves the problem in 4 minutes, shows her work, explains her reasoning. The class listens, asks questions, offers alternative methods. This is what enrichment looks like when it's actually about learning instead of performance. When Kaliyah sits back down, Miss Washington says, "Beautiful work. Anyone else want to show their approach?" 3 more students volunteer. After class, Kaliyah walks to her locker. Zaria catches up, talking about the dance next month, about whether they should try out for basketball, about normal 6th grade concerns. Life moves forward. The incident that nearly defined her becomes just a moment, painful, but not permanent. She doesn't know that somewhere in a filing cabinet in Dr. Chen's office, there's documentation of systematic bias that led to institutional reform. She doesn't know her silence was heard by adults who refused to ignore it. She just knows that she can raise her hand now without calculating danger first. And maybe that's the point. Justice doesn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes the children who were harmed never learn about the adults who fought for them. But the fighting still matters, because systems don't change on their own. They change when people who see something wrong decide that staying comfortable matters less than doing what's right. Sometimes the biggest victories happen in rooms we never enter. Subscribe and stay tuned for our final chapter, The Question That Still Lingers. Drop a comment about a time someone fought for you without you knowing. Your story might inspire someone else's courage. The question arrives in Kaliyah's inbox on a Tuesday afternoon in March, 7 years after the incident. She's 21 now, sophomore at Howard University studying mathematics education. Her dorm room is small but organized, textbooks stacked by color, equations taped to walls, coffee mug ring staining her desk where she's been working since dawn. The email subject line reads, "Invitation to speak Crestview Alumni Panel." She almost deletes it. Crestview feels like another lifetime, a school she attended in someone else's childhood. But something makes her click. Dear Kaliyah, we're hosting an event celebrating educational equity reforms at Crestview Preparatory. You were identified as a student whose experience helped catalyze important institutional changes. Would you be willing to share your perspective? Dr. Marcus Chen, Principal. Kaliyah reads it 3 times. Student whose experience helped catalyze important institutional changes. The words feel foreign, like they're describing someone else's life. She calls Mama Ro. Her grandmother's voice comes through the phone, warm and raspy from her afternoon nap. "Baby, what's wrong?" "Crestview wants me to speak at some equity event." Kaliyah stares at the email. "They're saying I helped change things, but I don't remember doing anything except stopping raising my hand." Silence on the line. Then Mama Ro says something that shifts everything. "Baby, sometimes the bravest thing you do is just survive and let people who love you fight the battles you didn't know were happening." That night, Kaliyah can't sleep. She pulls out her laptop, searches Crestview Preparatory Equity Investigation 2019. Articles appear, documents, a timeline she never knew existed, teacher documentation, accreditation investigation, probationary status, principal resignation, systematic reforms. She reads until 3 in the morning, piecing together a story where she was both the center and completely absent. Teachers she barely remembers fought for her in rooms she never entered. Adults carried evidence and fear and determination while she was just trying to survive 4th grade. Miss Lo's name appears repeatedly. Simone Baptiste, Mr. Chen, the music teacher, not the principal. People who saw what she couldn't articulate and refused to ignore it. The next morning, she responds to Dr. Chen's email with one word: yes. 3 weeks later, she stands in Crestview's auditorium. The room looks smaller than she remembers, less impressive. Paint that seemed pristine at 9 looks ordinary at 21. Teachers fill the front rows, some she recognizes, most she doesn't. Miss Lo sits 3rd row center, hair grayer but eyes the same. Kaliyah adjusts the microphone. Her prepared speech sits in her pocket, but she doesn't reach for it. "I spent years not knowing I mattered," she says. "Not knowing that adults I never spoke to were documenting, fighting, risking their careers because they believed I deserved better." Her voice steadies. "So my question for everyone here, for every teacher, every administrator, every person who works with children is this: who are you fighting for when no one's watching? Whose silence are you refusing to ignore?" The room goes still, because justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's teachers staying late to document patterns. Sometimes it's courage that looks like fear, but moves forward anyway. She pauses. "And sometimes the children you're protecting never know your names, but you fight anyway. Because that's what love looks like when it's not about recognition. It's about doing what's right, even when the cost is high and the credit is invisible. The applause starts slow, then builds. After the event, Miss Lowe approaches. They stand awkwardly for a moment. Student and teacher separated by years and secrets finally spoken. "Thank you," Kaliyah says simply. Miss Lowe's eyes fill. "You raised your hand again. That's all that mattered." Driving back to campus, Kaliyah thinks about invisible justice, about people who fight battles we never see, about how the most important changes happen quietly, documented in folders, and carried in hearts too stubborn to accept that wrong is just how things are. Her phone buzzes. Text from Mama Ro. "How'd it go?" Kaliyah smiles. "I finally understand what you meant, about people fighting for you even when you don't know." Mama Ro's response is immediate. "That's called love, baby. It doesn't need an audience." And somewhere in the space between gratitude and understanding, Kaliyah Monroe realizes that her story was never just hers. It belonged to everyone who refused to let silence win. Sometimes the most powerful question isn't about what happened. It's about who stood up when they didn't have to. Have you ever discovered someone fought for you without you knowing? Share your story in the comments below and inspire others with the invisible courage that changed your life. Subscribe and turn on notifications. More powerful stories are coming that you won't want to miss. Your voice matters. Use it.